It was a kind of winter morning when snow clings to the rooftops and breath hangs in the air like a question. In a small Montana neighborhood tucked near the Missouri River, a routine day was just beginning. Children were heading off to school, parents warming up their cars. Nothing seemed out of place. But in the span of just minutes, a boy vanished, leaving behind no struggle, no sound, and no clue. What followed wasn't just a search for answers. It was a descent into one of the most disturbing and contested criminal investigations the town, and the country, had ever seen. This is the story of Zachery Ramsay. Hello friends, my name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders. Great Falls, Montana in 1996 was a working-class community trying to find its footing in the shifting tides of the decade. Known historically as the Electric City because of its early hydroelectric dams, it had long been shaped by industry, agriculture, and its proximity to Malmstrom Air Force Base. By the mid-1990s, the town was experiencing a mix of modest growth and quiet decline. The Cold War had ended just a few years earlier, and although Malmstrom still operated, defense cuts had impacted local employment and the economy. The downtown area showed signs of aging, and like many small American cities, Great Falls was beginning to feel the effects of nationwide shifts. A rise in crime, economic uncertainty, and growing mistrust in institutions. However, violent crime was rare, and when something did happen, its effects echoed through the community. Against this backdrop, the disappearance of a young boy was more than a tragedy. It was a rupture in the town's sense of safety and identity. Zachery Ramsay, age 10, lived in a neighborhood of Great Falls known as Gibson Park. He lived with his mother, Rachel Howard, and two siblings, 5-year-old Simone and 2-year-old Isaac, in a rented row house at 414 4th Street North, a mere 4.5 blocks from Whittier Elementary School, where he was a 5th grader. Zachery's father, Franz Ramsay, was a staff sergeant stationed at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado. On Tuesday, February 6, 1996, Zachery left home heading toward Whittier Elementary School. Standing 4 feet tall and weighing 100 pounds, with curly dark hair and brown eyes, he was wearing a blue denim coat with green sleeves over a blue football jersey with his name on the back, blue jeans and high-top sneakers. He crossed the street between 4th and 5th Avenues and began walking east up the alley, which was his usual route. Typically, Zachery would meet up with his friends in the schoolyard, and they would joke and play until the 8:15 bell rang for the children to come inside. On this morning, however, they were left wondering where he was. When he had not arrived at school by 10 a.m., school officials contacted his mother to notify her of his absence. After a brief search along his normal route, Rachel reported him missing to police at 11 a.m. Police launched a large-scale search to find Zachery. Bloodhounds were brought in and focused on areas around the boys' neighborhood, the Giant Springs State Park, and the river. Firefighters searched vacant buildings, and community service officers went door to door looking for him. No witnesses came forward, and no trace of him was ever found. Police ruled out the possibility of Zachery being a runaway, as they found no evidence of family abuse and no reason that he would have left home voluntarily. While the search for Zachery continued, his fellow 5th graders planted a ring of forget-me-nots around a white lilac bush by the school's front door. As law enforcement scrambled for leads and the media descended, Great Falls found itself thrust into the national spotlight. But beneath the headlines was a community grappling with fear, grief, and an uncomfortable realization. Even in the most ordinary places, the unthinkable can happen. Around the time of Zach's disappearance, Susan Smith drove her car into a lake and killed her 2 boys. That national news story influenced detectives who made Rachel their primary suspect in Zachery's disappearance. They felt she was not reacting to her son's disappearance in an appropriate way because she consistently maintained he was alive. As a parent myself, I don't find this unusual. However, investigators spent a large amount of time during the initial investigation trying to clear the family. For nearly 2 years, police worked the theory that Rachel was somehow responsible. Unfortunately, that logic led police away from a more viable suspect, Nathaniel Bar-Jonah, formerly David Paul Brown, who lived just 7 blocks away from Zachery and who had been arrested for allegedly sexually assaulting an 8-year-old boy 2 years before and had been convicted of kidnapping and trying to kill 2 other boys in 1977. In April 2000, Zachery's case was turned over to new detectives, and in December of that year, Murder charges were filed against Bar-Jonah. He was eventually set to go to trial in October 2002. After receiving a videotape of a boy she believed to be her son that was filmed in Italy after Zachery disappeared, Rachel, still believing he was alive, told prosecutors she would testify that her son was in fact still alive and that Bar-Jonah had not killed him. Police contend the boy in the videotape was not Zachery, even though they looked eerily similar, had the same birth date, and the same name. Prosecutors had investigated the second boy and found that his fingerprints and dental records did not match Zachery's. However, for reasons known only to them, they did not share this information with Rachel. Stating publicly that Rachel's testimony about Bar-Jonah being innocent would hurt their case, prosecutors ultimately dismissed the charges against him. Defense attorneys claimed it was due to the state having only weak circumstantial evidence and no real physical evidence or eyewitnesses that connected him to the crime. Prosecutors would later claim their reason for dismissal of the charges was because Bar-Jonah was already serving a 130-year sentence for previous convictions, and it would be a great cost to the state to continue. Something about this case just doesn't sit right with me. Yes, Bar-Jonah was a predator, that much is proven beyond any doubt. But why would the state drop the murder charges simply because Rachel believed a boy in Italy might be her missing son? If police knew the boy wasn't Zachery, why not just show her the evidence and move forward? The case against Bar-Jonah was built on circumstantial evidence, but that's not unusual. Countless convictions have been gotten that way. So was the case really that weak? Did prosecutors doubt they could convince a jury, even after investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into the investigation? Did Rachel's mistaken belief simply give them an out, a way to walk away from a case that had no body and no definitive answers? I don't know exactly what was going on behind the scenes, but one thing feels certain. Whatever this was, it wasn't justice. All these years later, there are still more questions than answers. Officially, the case is closed, but the truth, whatever it may be, never felt fully uncovered. The boy who walked out the door that morning never came home. And while theories have persisted, the only certainty is the silence he left behind. In a town that has learned to live with that silence, the story lingers, haunting the streets of Great Falls and the hearts of those still waiting to understand what really happened that cold February morning. If you have any thoughts or theories about this case, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.